names that are going to show up on the recording. All right, so thanks everyone for taking the time. I don't imagine this is going to be a very long presentation. We are going to take a minute in a second to introduce some folks. We are doing this virtually for a couple of reasons. One, in March, weather can sometimes be an issue, and so getting people to come out, we've had to reschedule it in the past because of snow and ice. Certainly not the case today. We've also, to be very honest, found that our attendance actually is better sometimes when we do these things virtually, and then we can record them and more people have access to them. So thank you again. We're gonna get started. I'm gonna do some introductions. First, I'm Mike Rubin. I'm the principal at Uxbridge High School. This is my 10th year, and Mr. Bertrand is unavailable. The folks who are on this list, if they are available, I'd ask them to unmute themselves and say hello. I know Mrs. Smutak is also here. She's our department leader for student services. She'll show up on the next slide, but I know she's driving, so I'm gonna tell her not to worry about it. And you've already heard sort of from Mr. Mora. He's our Dean of Students. So everybody else, if you could just go down in order, if you are here, to say hello, I would appreciate that.
I'm Chris Pryor. I'm here. I'm the math department head.
I know Miss Bernard is with our student council down on Cape Cod, so she is also not here, but we'll give you all the contact info for the folks who aren't.
Tracy Larkin, I'm the science department head.
I believe Mr. Silbor couldn't make it, and Mr. Smutak is teaching a class, and so is Miss Strupa. Miss Gaudet is going to be sharing out some information about world language separately. Miss Barnacle, I think you're here.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Barnacle, wellness team leader.
And we are going to introduce Ms. Barnacle in a couple minutes to talk a little bit about some of the changes that are going on with world language, with wellness. Sorry, you could talk about world language if you'd like, Ms. Barnacle. Ms. Smith, I think you're here.
Yes, hello, Ashley Smith, school counseling team lead.
And I don't know if Catherine, you're here, right?
Yep. Hi, Catherine Teigl-Teller, team chair, special guest, Madeline.
Hi, Madeline. It's good to see you. You can wave if you'd like. Hey. All right. So a little bit about Ms. Smith and the counselors. I think Ms. Toto is also in the house. We have 3 school counselors. Ms. Smith, do you want to talk a little bit about how you guys oversee some of the course selection work?
Absolutely. So our course selection is, so we do go into classrooms for the students to go over course selection process, to go over some of the program of studies information, where that's located, as well as the process in general. And then we meet with students after they've met with their teachers who give them recommendations. And we meet with each of our students. Ideally, it's by our caseload, but realistically, it's kind of all hands on deck to go over course requests. So we meet with every student individually to go over, okay, this is what you've been recommended for. What are you interested in? What are your plans? Here's some suggestions. And then we help to really refine that list. And then we also remind students that, again, this is just course requests for course selection. It's not any finalized list. As we go on throughout the school year and we start working on finalizing those schedules, sometimes we'll have students reach out to us to make a few changes, or maybe they were recommended for one thing and a teacher has changed their mind and wants to move them up a level. So it's a little bit more of a moving target versus just kind of like, okay, here's my course request and that's it. But we are, available throughout the school year. Even sometimes I think students, as we're working over the summer, will sometimes reach out to students over the course of the summer, even if we're running into some errors, to really make sure they're involved in the process. And we are hopefully getting them to a schedule that is as close to what their hopes were to begin with.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. our graduation requirements have slightly changed. As you may have heard, and we've been sharing out, back in November, the Commonwealth voted, the people voted, to remove MCAS as a statutory requirement for graduation. It's still a requirement for testing and funding and all these other good things, but it is not a requirement for graduation. So we have focused our graduation requirements in terms of coursework. Most of this hasn't really changed. For some of you who are parents of younger students, grade 8 through 9, the standard path that most students take at our school is to take 4 courses in English, 4 courses in math, 3 courses in science, and I have technology there because some of our technology classes are engineering courses that are also considered lab sciences, 3 courses in social studies, a world language course, 1 course in the arts, and then some changes to wellness. The arts can comprise fine art, meaning ceramics, drawing and painting. Art 1 could also consider be performing arts. Some students will take a guitar class. Some students will take chorus, band, ensemble classes. And some other students will take technical art classes, such as manufacturing or graphic design, digital photo. The reality is that if a student takes an engineering class and wishes to count it as their art class, that's fine. However, students cannot double dip. So if a student uses an engineering class as his or her arts class, it cannot also count as their science class. Ms. Larkin is here. We do have a fairly standard path for most of our students who take science, in that our 9th graders will take physics, our 10th graders take biology, and then when students get to 11th grade, they have some choices. Some students will take chemistry honors, some students will take chemistry college prep, some students will move to environmental science, and then some other students will actually double up and take things like AP Bio, AP Physics. We've had the opportunity to offer AP Chem in the past. We haven't in the last couple of years. Some students will even have courses like biomedical science or their engineering classes. The one thing I will say that is a benefit here, and I'm sure Ms. Larkin will back me up when I turn the floor over to her in a moment, is all of our sciences are lab sciences. We don't have any sciences that are not considered lab sciences. They all have a lab component. And so when students apply to college, whether they're applying to a 2 or a 4-year school, all of our classes are considered lab sciences. Ms. Larkin, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add on the science front, but the physics, bio, chem sort of path has worked well. But I think maybe one thing you could talk about is that sometimes students who do well in bio find chem to be different. Some students really well in physics might do well in chem, and because there is some math requirement that we ask students to have.
Yeah, the biology, environmental science is more of a word-based science, where chem and physics are the math-based sciences. So, I mean, that's pretty, that's a difference at that point. Did you mention, I'm sorry, it's late. It's really not late, but it's late.
We both
Uh,
sleepwalked out of the building today. I get
we
it.
did, we did.
We were walking out together. We were both sleepwalking. It's
Yes,
not
we
a
were.
lie.
The PBS and the HBS too, the biomedical programs. If a student is interested in exploring that, I've had some the 10th graders take biology, and taking the PBS alongside of that has been a good kind of dual enrollment, I guess, if I can put it, for lack of a better term. It's just a good kind of co-requisite to take together, that a lot of students don't do that, and they take like the Project Lead the Way stuff 11th and 12th grade. But PBS is Principles of Biomedical Science, and it's introduction course where excuse me, and it's where it introduces the kids to those programs and then gets them excited to kind of explore a little bit more. But some students have taken it along with bio, and it's a good if the kids like the science and are interested in that, that's a pretty safe bet to go with too. I wanted to put that out there.
We find the same with the students who are in ninth grade that take intro to physics and they're taking intro to engineering at the same time. They're similar, but they're different. And we've also had some students that have taken intro to engineering in grade 9. And then when they get to 10th grade, they might switch to biomed because they're more interested on the bio side of engineering than the manufacturing or mechanical side of engineering. The other change, so thank you, Ms. Larkin. The other change
welcome.
that we had this year with our wellness, with our graduation policy is wellness. And in the past, it has really been you'll take 4 PE classes and a health class, and we have restructured wellness. And this impacts more the 9th and to a lesser extent the 10th grade. We're not moving the finish line on grades 11 and 12 really at all. But for our students who are moving into grades 9 and grades 10, they will have some different choices in the wellness program. And Ms. Barnacle, if you wouldn't mind talking about the way that we have shifted the wellness program away from just 4 PE classes, you can take the same thing over and over again, to having classes in different categories. And folks, you don't have to worry about taking notes. There are additional slides on all of this that are coming up later in the presentation. But it's just while we have graduation requirements front and center, I wanted to have these folks take an opportunity to share the perspective on it. So Ms. Barnacle, if you're still out there and in the cyber world, if you wouldn't mind talking about the wellness program.
No, absolutely. This is something, I'm really excited about. Our department's really excited about. All of the changes that have been made are really to help students have a more sort of comprehensive experience. And you can see on the screen here, a 9th grade sort of intro to wellness. The goal of that will be to provide sort of little sneak peeks or snippets into all that our department has to offer. We've always offered a lot, but because students were allowed to retake courses, we found that a lot of students kind of took what they're comfortable with and, are missing out on some other aspects of wellness that I think when we think about long-term post-graduation life will allow for students to really develop more skills. So the goal is to have students still have independence in terms of what they're taking and have a lot of choice, but help facilitate kind of more exposure into maybe different areas that they wouldn't otherwise put themselves in. So there'll be opportunities still for the sort of traditional team sport, team building through movement idea, which most of our students are pretty familiar with, but then also kind of highlighting more of a personal wellness journey with focuses on fitness and sort of lifelong health, as well as some lifestyle development, and our family and consumer science courses will meet that criteria. So when we talk about students really learning to cook, the goal is to sort of touch on every aspect of the students' wellness, not only currently as they're in high school, but again, kind of for long-term life skill development of how to lead a healthy and productive lifestyle. So it's sort of our vision, and we're going to be revamping some courses and bringing in a couple of new courses for next year that I think students will really love.
The other benefit to that is for students who take family and consumer science classes, which have always just been straight elective, the classes that we offer in foods will now count towards a student's wellness graduation requirement. So there's a good positive change afoot. Maybe this is where I'll slightly tease that we've also had the opportunity to use some grant funds that we secured as part of our career pathways to revamp some of the spaces, which are going to make fitness classes more palatable, particularly down in our weight room and the fitness room across the hall. So we're pretty excited about just the changes and the evolution in general. And in general, speaking of, we offer classes in 2 levels. Thank you, Ms. Barnacle. We might tap you on the shoulder again in a little while. Our courses are 2 level. We offer college prep and then honors or AP. This is not all that different from things people may have seen in the past. The one thing that we will talk about with students is um, not to necessarily feel obliged to take all honors or AP classes in every discipline for which they're recommended, that they should look at what they're interested in. They should look at the courses that sometimes challenge them, and they should also look at challenges that are courses that are going to impact or maybe give them, for lack of a better word, more stress than others. Sometimes when students just don't like a discipline, pushing them into an honors class that they're just to say they're in an honors class is not always the best decision. At the same time, we do find some students that will sometimes take a college prep class when we believe that they could be pushed a little harder in the honors level, and that's something to talk about with counselors. One thing that we'll get into when we talk about recommendations in a minute is that teachers are only recommending students within their own discipline. So, if you just heard from Miss Larkin, if she's recommending a student for an honors level class in science, she doesn't necessarily know that that student may also have a recommendation in English and social studies and math. And we leave the counselor, the student, and the parent, guardian, to really sift through that amount of levels. Each teacher does what's best in their particular discipline, in their particular area, and then they'll have the counselor and the teacher and the student rather will have that conversation around which courses, if not all of them, they want to take at the honors or college prep level. What we ask is, what subjects do students enjoy most? They'll see the same presentation when we meet with them in the next couple of weeks. And we do give out a time management worksheet because as students get a little bit older, they tend to have other responsibilities, work, sports, clubs, leadership positions that take up more of their time. And striking a balance between what's needed, wanted, and challenged is important. And we do really believe that there should be balance. I could tell a lot of horror stories of students who overstep or overextend themselves, and we really want students to make good decisions. And I think it's a big part of what Ms. Smith talked about with the conversation around scheduling. The conversation does turn, however, oftentimes to what the student's future plan is. What we have a little bit of a leg up on in this is when we're talking about college applications and the course selection process. We start with our students in grade 7, and so we do get a chance to know our students a little bit earlier and be able to set them in what's called their career and academic path, or MyCap, very, very early on. And we can then work towards a school that is a good fit in terms of programming. A lot of times we hear that students feel really compelled to take as hard a program as possible or they won't get into college. And that's just false. All of these variables are considered when people start looking at post-secondary, and different schools weigh things differently. And I don't know if Ms. Smith or Ms. Toto want to jump in on this, or if I've summed it up well.
No, you did a great job. We really work with the students, from 8th grade on, trying to take into account not only their career aspirations, but also their passions. Some students have an idea of sort of where the road's going to lead and what they hope it looks like. And others are just kind of like, I'm not really sure, but I like X, Y, Z. So we really try to point them into that direction, making sure that we're covering our bases, and always remind students that, it is about balance. We want to make sure we're not overdoing it too. And that sometimes where students start in terms of an interest, it might sort of shift along the way. And so it's bigger conversations that happen throughout their entire high school experience, which is helpful for us because the more we get to know them, the more I think we're able to really tailor and make suggestions. But colleges do recalculate their GPA along the way. So it's important for us, again, junior, senior year, when we kind of dive into that deeper. But again, it's a all hands on deck throughout the whole process.
And, we've modeled our graduation requirement. As you'll see, they're very much in line with what the four-year schools are looking for. And even with our shifting graduation requirements, they have all fallen in line with plenty of space for students to take as much as they need for all four-year schools. And the good news for this is that over time, now that we've had some consistency in our counseling office for the last, maybe 4 or 5 years, we've actually been able to develop some relationships with some of the schools themselves, and we have some really good data on what types of schools Uxbridge students tend to be successful in terms of their application process. If this is something, particularly as parents of sophomores and juniors are really kind of thinking about, I strongly recommend, and I'm sure the counselors would support me on this, just have an email or make an appointment to come in and sit down with the school counselor, and you'll see really that there's we can share some of our data. We have some really great metrics on this in our Beyond system as well. We also have access to something called CGN, which is an online counseling support. It is available to every single member of our school community. There's also a video there. That Vimeo link is a video that shows you how CGN works. But it's as simple as logging in because you're an Uxbridge parent. It is something that we've subscribed to for every family in the district. I actually have gotten some great feedback from the families who are using it. This does not replace the school counselor at school. This just gives you as families and students some different insights that we really think will be beneficial in terms of the path. So when we get into course selection itself, these are the numbers that are really important. All of our students sign up for 14 credits. Our credits are set up so that if a class meets for 1 semester, it's worth 1 credit. If it meets for 2 semesters, it's worth 2 credits. Our students take 7 classes. That's 14 credits. How those 14 credits are dispersed really depends on the student, what they need, what they want, and what's required of them. It is important we also have them select 5 alternates to their electives. Sometimes students get to the end and they realize, you know what, these are my 7 classes. I'm taking English, I'm taking math, I'm taking social studies, I'm taking science, I'm taking a world language class, I'm taking a semester of physical education, a semester of art, and a year-long course, say in engineering, and their 14 credits are all kind of settled for themselves. Many times that works out really, really well. We still ask students to present some alternates to us just in case something doesn't fit or something gets filled or something doesn't run. There are some times where a student may select something. They're one of only a couple of students that select that class and we decide not to run it. That's been a little more rare. And we've been able to maintain most of our course offerings despite some of the challenges that we've had the last couple of years. The process is going to occur in Power School. So what's going to happen is that the teachers in the next couple of weeks are going to start making recommendations. Our students will be given some prompting on how to select courses. The school counselors will meet with the students to validate those courses, and then parents will be able to see it on their end. When you log into the Power School system as parents, you'll be able to log in on the left and see exactly what students were able to select. It's new for us. I've done this as on the parent side, and I've set it up now on the admin side. I am hopeful that the teacher side and the student side match as easily as I think they're going to, and that by ideally we're hoping before April break, all of this will be visible in Power School, and that's pretty much around our time frame that we usually try to schedule everything, or at least the course requests in. We also have, and we're going to go into a little bit of some of the more particular, we have some early college opportunities. These prerequisites, the 2.7 GPA prerequisite, is somewhat flexible. It is open to juniors and seniors, our early college class, The opportunities depend on the course. The cost is sometimes course dependent. This year, we have offered courses through Worcester State, some of which have been taken virtually and some of which have been taken at Uxbridge High School in the evening. Some of them have been taken at Worcester State on the weekends. We've offered courses pretty consistently through Quinsigamond Community College since 2017. And when students earn credit in those courses with a grade of C or higher, they can transfer those grades to any of the Massachusetts community colleges or state colleges, as well as any state college or university in New England because of what's called the New England Compact. I will tell you that we've also had students be able to transfer their credits to some private schools. There are some private schools that do not accept them for credit, but will accept the credits for placement, meaning if you say pass, say an early college English class, they may place you into a more advanced English class, but not give you the 3 credits. That's rare. Most of the places where our students have applied and tried to use these credits, they've worked. These are the courses that we've offered over the last couple of years. Typically in the first semester, we've offered English Comp 101 through Quinsig. At Worcester State this year alone, we've offered Intro to Business, Intro to Mass Communication, a college writing class, personal financial planning, and personal health. And then next year, we're actually going to be interested in offering some classes through something called Syracuse Project Advance, where we're going to offer an Intro to Esports class, a statistics class, and a class possibly we're waiting on whether we're approved to offer a class called College Learning Strategies, which is an organizational class, basically teaching kids how to study. And for lack of a better word, we sort of call it the How to Be an Adult and Independent at College class. These classes, Worcester State this year, by the generosity of both the school and our partnership there, one of our parents has been a great resource for us at Worcester State, as well as the state's funding. The Worcester State schools have not had a charge attached to them. Quinsigamond Community College's classes have had a charge, and Syracuse Project Advance, I believe, runs for anywhere from $100 to $120 per credit, which means a 3-credit class, if it's $110, will be $330. It sounds like a lot of money when I say it that way, but when we talk to higher education, a typical 3-credit class is costing anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 because a lot of classes have a per credit cost there. So this does give us I think a real competitive leg up, and it gives our students an opportunity to sometimes go to college with anywhere from 3 to 9 or 12 college credits at a fraction of a cost, because 12 credits is the equivalent of a semester, and some of our students are earning 12 credits for about $3,000, which is way less expensive than the colleges are charging. And again, we're still waiting to know, like, some of these classes might not have a charge for next year. We are ideally going to find more of that information out in the next few weeks. We have not offered them to sophomores yet. There's a lot of research that's supporting both ideas of going earlier and also waiting. We tend to have most success just because of the amount of independence that these courses require for juniors and seniors. There's also a movement afoot about skills, and you'll hear us using the word over the next few years, the word durable skills, because the post-secondary world is not just about grades anymore. You may have heard a lot of places starting to go away from, if you have a degree, you get a higher probability of being successful at landing a job. We've been working very closely with a lot of our employer partners on the durable skill continuum, and this is where our career pathways come in. We are unique in that our career pathways connect students right in our building to industry and really have 3 main components. There are academic classes, most of which you've seen already: English, math, science, social studies, etc. There's a technical course sequence, and then the senior year culminates with either a capstone or a project or an internship. The vast majority of our students completing an internship. And we're going to talk about internship in just a second for those of you who are parents of rising seniors. All of our internships lead to credentials recognized by industry. All of our pathways have credentials that are recognized by industry. As an example, every student who works in our does studies in our manufacturing pathway earns an OSHA certification. Every student who is in our hospitality course has earned a ServSafe certification. Our students who are taking graphic design and film are working towards Adobe certification, and all of our students in internships are earning credentials that document the kind of skills, the durable skills like punctuality and job readiness that are then tied to their life after high school. And Mr. Mora, our Dean of Students, oversees all of that as our internship coordinator. The course electives, when a student signs up for a course in a pathway, that they're guaranteed. So every student who has ever asked to take an engineering or a biomed class has gotten into an engineering, a biomed class, an education class. We have 5 pathways. I probably should have mentioned that. Business and finance is 1. Digital media is 2. Manufacturing engineering is 3. Biomed is 4. And education, future educators, is the 5th. Students can choose their program, and I know there may be some families who are in grade 8 that are thinking about BVT, and that's a great option. They're an awesome school with tremendous programs, and I have a lot of respect for the way their successes in the vocational world. The one difference between us and BVT is that our students who want a pathway get that pathway, whereas at BVT, students have to go through an exploratory, and then they are matched with a pathway. Our internships and our graduation requirements, our pathways are all intertwined, and it doesn't mean that other interests can't be met. If a student is interested in being in the band and being an engineer, we can make it work. If students are interested in an internship or a capstone project as a senior, but they're still want to make sure they get to experience certain classes within the building, we make it work. And I think that's one of the main benefits of our program. I'm not going to play this video. This is actually a marketing video for, you know what? I think I am going to play it because it's a marketing video that was used by the state to describe our pathways. It's only a minute long, so I'm going to hit play, and that'll allow me to get a drink of water. Give me 1 second.
Every single year I've been here at Uxbridge, I have taken pathway program classes. I joined the innovation pathway for manufacturing, and as I was working my way through that program, I found myself dipping into the digital media pathway more and more. They've allowed me to understand what it would be like to work in digital media, use industry standard work. It showed me what I would enjoy doing. They've defined my high school career.
I use digital media to turn into a business internship. I am doing digital marketing with a nonprofit company. Never thought I would go into business school, but now really do want to. These pathways can lead them to jobs that they never thought they could ever get, propel their future to the greater lengths, and help them in life.
I've always been interested in the medical field, but now I'm very into engineering. So I'm thinking of using biomedical engineering as a stepping stone for dosimetry. This was something that I could do, and I feel like I know what I want to do.
Oops, play it twice. We do have a pathway application. It's found there, and that's more for students who are interested in making sure they sit down with their counselor and focus their experience on being part of a pathway. And it also leads to something as part of our graduation requirement that's called a CAPS diploma. Uxbridge High School is the only program actually in New England that is a high school that's part of something called the CAPS network, which is really internationally renowned now. I've really grown to love being part of a CAPS program. CAPS stands for Centers for Advanced Professional Studies. It is about career-centered learning and profession-based learning, which is something we extend across all of our disciplines. And the CAPS diploma, students have to meet 4 of 6 criteria, and it gives them an extra recognition when they leave UHS. I think it's an awesome way for us to have our students stand out as they're looking to make their mark when they leave UHS. So again, our career pathway classes tend to be more hands-on. We have a lot of industry standard equipment. We have the opportunity for students to use tools that are very similar to what they see when they go off to internship, and they tend to be fun. One thing I have always said about why I think students should be taking classes like manufacturing engineering or biomed or ceramics, you can't take that equipment home, so it naturally creates some balance in the schedule where there typically isn't a lot of homework and the work gets done right in the building every single day. It's exercising a different part of the brain, and it is preparing them for durable skills in the workforce and internship. um, Before I jump through the disciplines, internship, and I know Mr. Mora is here. We have a bunch of students who are already expressing interest in internship, and there are some ways that we ask students to make sure they plan for internships in advance of their senior year, and this is really geared more towards parents and students in the junior class than anybody else. So, Mr. Mora and perhaps Ms. Smith and Ms. Toto to talk a little bit about how we get students to sign up for internships, what that means for course selection, what that means for their placements for next year, and Jamie or Ashley, if you wouldn't mind, just the piece we know is important after Mr. Morris speaks. If we could just talk real quickly about how it affects the transcript.
So, yeah, thanks, Dr. Rubin. My name is David Moore. I'm the Dean of Students and Internship Coordinator. Mike spoke pretty in depth in terms of how the pathways works. And yes, the end game for the pathways in their senior year usually becomes an internship or a capstone project or a combination of both. I wanted to reiterate that if more for the rising seniors, if they didn't participate in many of the pathway classes, they're still eligible for an internship. They know of perhaps a major that they're interested in or a course of study that they want to pursue afterwards, or even if they're going to go right into the workforce and they want to get set up, get started already, we can accommodate much all of that. And that's kind of what our makeup of our interns are. So no one is really excluded from it. The only thing that could exclude someone from an internship is, of course, if they have too many classes that they have to make up that they maybe didn't pass as freshmen, juniors, or freshmen, sophomores, or juniors, and they don't have the time or the bandwidth within their schedule. So that's why we really encourage our underclassmen to take care of business in those years, so that they have a lot of flexibility their senior year to get that work-based experience. The counselors can kind of speak more to that. Our counselors are unbelievable in terms of setting up the schedule so that it fits nicely into their schedule where they have consecutive blocks of internship. We don't put a cap on the mandatory how many hours you have to fulfill. I know the state has like 100-hour mandate. They don't really, the 100-hour mandate police don't come out and check. It's more like if a student's taking AP classes, for instance, and they want to do an internship, they're not going to get 100 hours of internship in because of the schedule. So we don't really put any requirement in terms of how many hours they have to do per week or not, as long as they're getting that form of experience, that type of a work-based experience, whether it be in the building or outside the building. That suffices the requirement. We put a heavy emphasis on the evaluation of the durable skill. To me, a high school intern, different from a college intern per se, who might be doing a clinical or a practicum or student teaching or whatever the case might be. They're really just putting their toe in the water. They're going to learn some of the technical skills, not all of them yet, because of the time that they're limited to. But at the end of their experience, they're going to walk away from a really strong foundation of building strategies to be successful in the durable skills that we evaluate them on and their industry partner evaluates them on. And if they score a certain average, they'll get recognized for that with a credential. And they can either put that on their LinkedIn accounts or on the resume. So that, in a nutshell, is the internship program. I'd love to speak more about it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at the school.
Mr. Moore, and it's typical that most students who have an internship, they can be off-site. Students typically transport themselves, and they usually fill up 2 to 3 periods of a student's schedule. Correct?
Correct. And for the juniors, for this year's current juniors, next year's rising seniors, an interest form is going to be going out at the beginning of next week via Google form, and they can go ahead and fill out the information, line of interest, and we can start get the ball rolling for next semester in terms of pairing them up with an industry partner.
And for you parents, guardians out there that are maybe work in a small business in town or work in an office somewhere, or have a to-do list that you feel comfortable letting a high school student take a crack at, Mr. Moore is your contact, because we are always looking to expand our partners. We could share some of the stories that we've gotten from our workforce partners this year. Our students are really, really well respected out there in the community. They won't let you down, and really proud of the growth that this program's made in just a couple of years. That said, we sometimes have some students who overload the schedule or try to overload their schedule with internship blocks, and there are pluses and minuses to that. So, Ms. Smith, would you like to just touch base on that real quick, or Ms. Toto, one of you, on how we don't necessarily want students to overdo their schedule as seniors?
Yeah, so we, especially junior year, even before that, we are kind of always working with students early on to let them know about the opportunities that are going to be coming down the road, because we do want them to stay on track, get their graduation requirements done, so that if an internship is something that they're interested in, they do have the space in their schedule for that. Whether or not an internship makes sense for a student is a little bit of a bigger conversation. So when we meet with students, we have an idea of like what schools they're interested in, what major they might potentially want to do, or what career after high school. It kind of becomes a bit of a bigger conversation as to like the how many blocks of internship, and does it make sense for the other classes that they want to take. So as Dr. Rubin mentioned, we try our best to schedule students accordingly based off of the classes that they want. And then we can kind of stack their classes if it aligns, so that we can have the space for internships. With that said, we do stress that we all see the value of internship and the hands-on experience and the durable skills that they're gathering from those internships and work placements. However, we cannot fully say that a college is going to view it singularly the same across all colleges. So one of the things that we've been stressing as we've been meeting with juniors this year in preparation for the post-secondary plan is like, if you go on a college tour, ask questions about how does that college view internship, and is it great to see on a transcript, or would they prefer to see an in-person class? So it's a bigger conversation, because again, we want them to be ready to go, not just in terms of their graduation requirements, but in terms of making their transcript as desirable as possible for colleges, while also keeping in mind them having the most experiences possible. We've had so many success stories already out of first semester this year of students who interned in one industry, realized it wasn't for them, it's not the major they actually want to go for, and they've switched it for second semester and are loving it. Like it's just providing such an informed opportunity for students before they head out after graduation.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. So the next slides that we have are really going to go discipline by discipline, and I'm not going to read a bunch of slides with what our course offerings are. But they will give you a sense as to what some of the literature classes are. They vary. There are actually a couple of more grade 12 classes that were just approved last week, a poetry class and a journalism class that are also literature seminars. Because early college classes are the equivalent of a full semester of college, we do give those 2 credits. Our own literature seminars are 1 credit classes. AP Lit and AP Lang are 2 credit classes. For students who are underclassmen, all of these classes are grade 9, grade 10, grade 11 English. They're all 2 credit classes. And anything, again, that's year round in the cores are going to be considered year long 2-credit classes. We do not advise typically. I used to teach English. Some people have seen, AP Lit, AP Lang, and some students have said, well, I'll just take both as a junior, and then I won't have to take an English as a senior. I would never in a million years allow that to happen. Take one or the other. Do not take both. Miss Pryor, are you still with us?
I am.
You want to have a chat about some of the, because this is not sequence. This is just a list, and the conversation around what math class should I take and where does it go is a common one we get, I think, from all grades, right?
It is.
So we're going to let you tackle the, hey, I've been taking Algebra 2 and in grade 9, and I then took this and I took that. What do you think is the best path forward for students as they are first looking at the upper class classes, and then maybe from the perspective of someone in grade 8?
Grade 8 is going to have 2 options next year. There's the Algebra 1 path, because our grade 8 covers the standards in 8th grade, not all algebra standards. So one path you could take is Algebra 1. The other is going to be honors geometry. The 8th grade teachers will recommend which direction you go. After that, you can sophomore year either end up in honors algebra 2 or CP algebra 2 if you went the honors geometry route. If you went the algebra 1 route, you go geometry and then algebra 2 sophomore and junior year. After that, when you get to junior year and past algebra 2, you've got many choices. You could end up in pre-calculus, intro to college math. You could end up in statistics or calculus. Again, it really depends on what your interests are, what your post-secondary planning is, and whether you like math or not.
I think one of the things that sometimes we do here, and as a parent of a high schooler, I've heard this as well, is that if you don't take calculus, you're kind of dooming yourself in terms of your college application. I don't think that's necessarily the case, and I think sometimes people worry a little bit about not taking AP Calc. There are different courses that students can take as seniors based on what they're interested in, and you've seen some students that have taken AP Calc and pushed themselves there, and it's the right decision. And you've also seen some other students that are taking AP Calc just because, and it's not always the best decision. Do you want to just give some folks some insight as to the difference between, say, a senior who's taking AP Calc and then taking AP Stats as maybe the other option?
We are asking our students to decide what their plan is in college. If they're not going into a STEM field, then calculus may not be the direction for them. Maybe they like math and maybe they want to take it, but if they're going into other careers or taking different college majors, then statistics is probably going to be the better option because it's required by more careers or more majors in college. Whether it be AP statistics, depending on your choice in college, or CP statistics. You don't always have to go the calculus route.
And for students who have been in Algebra 1 now in grade 9, they'll be looking at geometry versus geometry honors, or Algebra 2 versus Algebra 2 honors at some point in their lives. What's the biggest difference between honors math and CP math?
CP math will touch on all the standards. Honors math will go at a quicker pace, more in depth, and requiring a lot more applications. Our CP students can still get to classes like statistics, pre-calculus. It doesn't mean it opts you out of it. It just means it's at a different level. It's at a different pace.
Anything else you want to add about math courses before I click?
Nope.
Thank you, Ms. Pryor. We mentioned the science program earlier today, so I'm not gonna go through this again. And we mentioned some of our tech ed classes. Those first four are Project Lead the Way. Common Capstone is just another name for the course that's engineering, design, and development. It's just going through a course revision at the national level, and we still call it engineering, design, and development because we have not. We just haven't changed the name of it. We also haven't had a lot of students from other engineering fields. We don't have the 4-course computer science pathway that some other schools have, and we don't have a 4-course biomed pathway. So it's not really a common capstone for us as much as it is an engineering class. And you can see some of the other classes down below. In social studies, our 3-course sequence in the high school level, Global 1, Global 2, Global 3, all offered college prep, all offered honors. For students who are coming out of Global 2, which is, as some people would say, well, is this world history? Is it U.S. history? The answer to all three is yes. We decided to do things a little differently a few years ago. It's worked out really well for us, and it allows our students to get really a pretty in-depth look at history across a whole lot of different parts of the world, and not just 2 full years of American history. They get 3 years of some European, some American, and some other parts of the world as well. The elective courses in history, there are a couple of full year APs, AP US and AP Government and Politics. There really isn't a better time or place or better sequence to take them. Some students will do better in AP US if they take it as seniors because they'll have had the 3 years of global history. There are some students who will take AP US as juniors in place of Global 3. And I'm not going to say there's any one way that's better or worse. It really is student dependent. And then the courses that are underneath are all half-year electives. Most students who have taken world language are aware of just how unique our world language program is. It's Spanish 1 through 4. The students will meet, those who are in Spanish classes right now will be meeting and conferencing with their students about where they belong in terms of the next course. If a student is in Spanish 1 and struggling and wants to continue in the discipline, we do offer 2 different versions of Spanish 2, where they just go back and are essentially reworking on some of the very same things in Spanish 1 that they were doing in the first year. They get credit for Spanish 1. They are taking a Spanish 2. It's just not as advanced as the Spanish 2 that is for students who have done really well with Spanish 1. The same goes for Spanish 3 and 4. The one change to Spanish this year that is worth noting if you're someone who's been in Spanish 4 is that Spanish 5, rather than being a full year course, is going to be 2 one-semester courses that students can either take together or take one but not the other based on their other interests. But other than that, Spanish is a sequential full year course. Some people will ask, does Spanish 1 taken in 8th grade count towards the college requirement? And more often than not, it does not. So students who take Spanish 1 in grade 9 should still take Spanish 2 in, who take Spanish 1 in grade 8 should still take Spanish 2 in grade 9. These are our music classes. The first 3 are full year: concert band, symphonic band, and chorus. Guitar music tech is a new class, and drama workshop are half-year courses. These are the as I like to refer to them, some of these are wet art classes and some of them are dry art classes. Ceramics and painting are wet art classes. Things like textile and digital photo and graphic design are obviously dry. So if a student is interested in any of the arts, Art 1 or Foundations of Art is the sort of gatekeeper class that a lot of students take. We typically have 3 or 4 different sections of it. And once again, we urge students to take the art and music classes for no reason other than you can't get a ton of homework when you can't take a kiln home. You'll see that the digital classes, graphic design and digital photo, are also technology classes because they overlap between the 2 departments. We went through wellness a little while ago, so we're not going to bump through that. And then we do have some online classes, early college classes. We talked about internship. If a student is really interested in something that we don't offer, in the past, we've had some students that have taken some singleton APs. We've had a couple students who've taken sign language, things that we don't offer at our school. That's an individual conversation with the counselor. They are not always, I shouldn't say they're not always. Universally, it's hard to say whether they're successful or not because we don't have control over the rigor or the educator, to be honest. So here's our course selection timeline. We'll have a grade 7 parent evening similar to this in a few weeks. Some of you who are in grade 8 and 9 might remember that. In mid-March, our hope is by the end of not the end of next week, but certainly the week after, that our students will be able to review teacher recommendations. Our teachers are going to be, that shouldn't say have made, are in the process of making recommendations online, and then they'll have what the students' course selections are. Once we get to the final day of course selection changes, once we set that, we'll review them all for accuracy. If there are classes that don't run, our school counselors will meet with the students and adjust course requests based on those availabilities. As an example, there was a few years ago or 2 years ago where only 3 students signed up for, I believe it was a drama workshop. There was another year where in the English department, we only had 5 students sign up for contemporary literature. We didn't run those courses. We bring the students in and we say, that's not running. This is why alternates are important. And if we decide to run some things or we decide not to run some things, there may be some changes. But typically, we have a pretty good idea going in of what we think are going to be the courses of interest or not. If a student has not met a prerequisite as of the time that the teachers have made the recommendation, but by June they do, we ask that they contact their counselor. As an example, sometimes we have students who are at the mid-year point, maybe they're not doing particularly well in geometry, and the teacher is hesitant to recommend that student to Algebra 2. But then by the end of the year, they've pulled it more together, and now they've satisfied the requirement. That's when we ask the student and the counselor to get together and determine whether the prerequisite has been met. By the same token, there are sometimes questions. If there's a question about the specific course recommendation, if there's a specific question between, hey, look, I thought my son would really like to take honors English, but they're recommended for college prep English, talk to the teacher first. Again, teachers are sometimes making decisions that they believe are in the best interest of the student in that moment and not considering the big picture. Sometimes it's a conversation, and I've seen this happen, where a student has been recommended for honors in 5 classes, and mom says, I know you recommended my student for honors chemistry, but doesn't really love science, or they've been recommended for honors English because they're typically a pretty good student, but they don't love to read. So, junior honors English is probably not going to be as worthwhile. Talk to the teachers. And if you have questions about specific electives or courses, you could talk to us, administration. You could talk to, our school counselors, and you could also reach out to the department leaders and say, my son or daughter is interested in these 2 electives, but what is the difference between, psychology and sociology? And you might want to get an answer about that isn't in the program of studies. When you're talking about big picture, course load, student schedule, the overall program, talk to the student's counselor. Those are the people that will have the best big picture look all together. So again, questions. There are some of the names of the people that you can reach out to. Sometimes questions come up. There's one department we hadn't mentioned yet around course selections. And that's special education. There may be some families out there that are curious about where does academic support fit into this? Where do specific, maybe a small group class fit into this? And I would be remiss if I didn't ask Ms. Tagliatella or Ms. Smutak, if they're still on, to just kind of address that, because those are some of the more specific questions that I'm anticipating will come up. but typically are done by hand, so students don't have to worry about it when they're doing their course recommendations. And Catherine or Amanda, if you're still out there, if you want to just share anything that I may have forgotten.
Sure. So special education courses come through a recommendation at a student's IEP meeting, whether it's their annual or reeval. So at the team meeting, we make those determinations whether a student requires a small group class, such as math or ELA, social studies, or science, and also that academic support class. And also, we make that determination if they require support within the general education setting. So we offer para-supported classes in the general education setting, as well as co-taught, which is where there's a general ed teacher and a special ed teacher within the class. And as I said, those determinations are made at team meeting through discussion and what the student requires.
If there's ever a time where a student wants something that fits into a schedule that either needs additional support or needs to, we've had some students who have wanted to do some things that, if there's any change to anything service related, a student feels like, well, we'd rather do an extra class than an academic support. Those are team decisions. Those are not things that a guidance counselor or a teacher can recommend on their own. I just want to make sure people hear that, right, Miss T?
Yes, absolutely. And I just also want to add that at a student's annual IEP meeting, we make a determination and make a recommendation for a certain class or a certain support, and then a student goes into their scheduling, and for some reason something doesn't work out. That parent can always reach back out to us, and we can reconvene the team and have further discussion around that and see if there's some flexibility.
Thank you. I am going to just jump out of the slides here for a second. Just give me 1 second to hit stop sharing. So we've given a ton of information. I looked over at the chat, didn't necessarily see anything jump out in the chat. I just want to ask any of the department leaders, counselors, if there's anything that I may have forgotten that we didn't go over. And if there are any parents, guardians, students who are on that wish to, type something in the chat, now's sort of your chance to do it. Or, raise a hand or something, and we'll do our best to answer any questions that may be out there that we haven't addressed already. I am not seeing anything in the chat, but Ms. Smith, Ms. Toto, department leaders, anything coming to mind? I saw a thumbs up. I am going to, in the chat to everyone, I'm going to leave my email and the emails of the 3 counselors so that you can have those as well if you don't already. And with that, I think I don't think we have anything else to add. I think we're at time. Just let me finish typing that and